80 schoolgirls in Afghanistan poisoned, a disturbing new assault. In a chilling assault on education in Afghanistan, nearly 80 schoolgirls fell victim to poisoning at two primary schools in the northern province of Sar-e-Pul. Mohammad Rahmani, head of the education department in the province, revealed that the two schools located near each other were targeted consecutively on June 3rd and 4th. The victims, enrolled in grades 1 through 6, were rushed to hospitals but are now reported to be fine. Rahmani mentioned that initial investigations suggest that the sinister act was carried out by a third party, hired by an individual with a personal grudge. An investigation is said to be ongoing. This disturbing attack is the first of its kind since the Taliban seized power in August of 2021 and imposed severe restrictions on women's rights and freedoms. So, as most people know, female education is banned in Afghanistan after the sixth grade, which is around like the age of 12 or 13. And so this happened to young schoolgirls below that age, between like first grade to sixth grade. And this is one very striking because we saw an epidemic of schoolgirl poisonings that happened in Iran and over the last several months, which affected thousands of students. And then we see this in Afghanistan now, next door, its neighbor. Although, however, what's different is that when it comes to the situation in Afghanistan, already there seems to be, well, supposedly so far, more answers. They're already saying that they think that I think I've read somewhere that they arrested someone, that they think that this was, someone was hired by another party to do this because they had like a grudge, they had some malintention, right? Meanwhile, in Iran, there's still almost no answers behind what happened with the mass schoolgirl poisonings. And so I thought it was very interesting that there seems to already be more answers here versus what happened in Iran, which is on a much, much, much larger scale. I have a little bit more that I want to say, but Armin, what's your immediate reaction?
The fact that this is so much like what happened in Iran, and I knew as soon as I said that, like Tesla also said like Iran. What is so do we know who's behind this?
Not in specifics, not yet. Just the minister of education in the province basically said that someone hired someone to do this because they had a grudge. They had, I don't know, some malintention that they wanted to carry out. That's all that we know so far. And there's apparently more of an investigation. But what I find really interesting, and this might be controversial to talk about, is that when the Taliban took over the first time, we saw instances of mass schoolgirl poisonings. And the UN did a full investigation and they found that there was actually no poisonings. Similar situation happened in Palestine, where children were experiencing these symptoms that they believed were poisonings. And after thorough investigation by outside international bodies, they found that there was no poisonings, that it was basically mass hysteria. It was psychogenic in origin.
In Iran. But that's not what happened in Iran, because in Iran, there are so many experts so far that have not suggested that this is mass hysteria. So
really,
I mean, not a single known expert has suggested that. So I don't think so. I mean, Alkin's Reeser will. I mean, I would change my. I will just appeal to the experts, right? As soon as somebody comes that says otherwise, I will change my views. But given that not a single serious source has suggested that, but what if it's not poisoning? Then what could it be? Like, how does this happen? Especially, why does it happen in with schoolgirls in countries where education in schools, education of girls is seen as a taboo? You know what I mean?
The theory is that if it is mass hysteria, the theory is that it's basically and it's an outward manifestation. It's a physical expression of children's underlying severe anxiety. Because of some of the symptoms can kind of almost be seen as panic attacks, especially the inability to breathe, which is one of the most common ones that's reported. Um, so there are so many instances in life, even on smaller scales for every one of us in our own personal lives, where our psychological fears in what we're experiencing are expressed somatically. They're expressed in our bodies, right? And what can happen is when one person starts to, especially children, right? Because they're so influenced by each other, and that when one of them starts to freak out and have these feelings, that it can kind of quote unquote like be spread, so to speak, among other children, being like, this is what's happening. And it's almost a way for the body to articulate this mental terror that cannot otherwise be very well spoken. There's no other way that it can be expressed, right? Considering the constraints in the physical environment. So it becomes like a health episode, essentially. I'm no expert, but that's my understanding of it.
Yeah. I mean, what I've seen from the videos of the girls, like the way it's really hard to imagine that would be.
Yes. I mean, especially, well, let me be clear. This is the situation in Afghanistan. They seem to have an actual person as the cause behind this. I just thought it was interesting, consider that there is a history of this previously happening, and people were like, oh, and actually in other countries, right? So just because we have previous reports about how this happened, several decades ago in a different country, that doesn't mean that that's what's happening now. It doesn't mean that that's what's happening in Iran. But it's something that I considered.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. There's a lot of doctors involved with this. And in Afghanistan and in Iran. And they're not saying that this was mass hysteria. So I don't think this is the case for what's happening in Iran and Afghanistan. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, this is not mass hysteria. This is a lot of doctors involved. This is a lot of experts involved. Not a single person from Iran has suggested. Even the government in Iran hasn't suggested that this is mass hysteria. Like even the government in Iran, who would be motivated to suggest that there's nothing happening there, they have said, "Oh my God, can't show that." They suggest that they have accepted that this is a poisoning. So both the people and the officials in Iran have said that these skull poisonings are actually poisoning. And in Afghanistan, look at this. Yeah, look, they're hospitalized. The doctors haven't reported that this is mass hysteria. This is actual poisoning, most likely. Right?
Yeah. So far, based on every evidence available to us.
Okay. Again, everything is possible, but we go by what's the most possible. But we try to apply Occam's razor as to see what is the most possible explanation here. And again, given that the experts are not coming with the report, the examples that you gave, Susanna, are for other cases that the experts have came and verified that was a mass hysteria. We don't have that here, so we should take these as serious chemical attacks on children.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
Until somebody, yeah, okay.
It's weird to see these copycat attacks.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I just wanted to verify that for the thing that you mentioned before, I found a source for what you said, and I don't know how credible this source is. I just wanted to make sure that when we say something here in this news, right? Just really quickly. So this is the source that I found, right? So this is asianews.it, which is based in Rome, a news site based in Rome. And they say they're basically giving the story that you mentioned, which is minors used as sex toys by ISIS women for reproductive purposes. So this is the source, but again, I don't know how good this source is. I just went and checked, and it's a Western source. It's a Western news outlet. I couldn't find any other sources. but this is not proof. I just wanted to mention that this has been a story somewhere. It doesn't prove that the story is true, but it's not like we made it up. Like, there is news sites that are reporting on this. Okay. But you can't just believe that. You have to go and do a fact check on it. I am still very skeptical about such a news item, but I just want to mention that it's not just, it is on a news, at least on a Western news site, at least, or at least one of them.